That's what I
All right, welcome back everybody to the public comment period of the Radioactive and Hazardous Materials Committee. Appreciate you all being here. At this point, everybody who signed in, we're going to take you first. If you do not sign in and you want to speak, we'll allow that. Everyone can only speak once at this point, just until we get through everybody anyway, but beyond that, it's not going to be a debate kind of thing. You get 3 minutes to speak. We are going to time it, and we've got to be very vigilant about that, just to respect everybody's time and get us out of here on time. So, with that, we'll just run down the list, and we're going to start with, I believe, the chairman of the Lee County Commission, who will be here for today, Commissioner Black. You want to say a few words? You want to sit down? You guys stand up?
I'll just stand up, that's okay. This time, members of the committee. My name is Ron Black.
Jimmy.
Hello? Okay. Okay. I'll start over. My name is Ron Black, and I'm the chairman of the Lee County Commission, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Holtec project. I apologize for not being here to welcome you this morning. We had a county commission meeting this morning, and so I wasn't able to be here early, but I do appreciate you coming to Lee County for your meeting. I know it's a long ways down here. I'm here today in support of the interim storage project by Holtec International. Lee County has branded itself as the Energy Plex, and while we're best known for oil and gas production, we also have several wind and solar projects on the ground and more on the planning stage. Nuclear is a very important part of the equation, as Urenco USA operates the nation's only uranium enrichment facility here in Lee County. The citizens of Lee County are well informed on the subject of nuclear energy. Urenco has been a very good corporate citizen and provided well-paying jobs and millions of dollars in tax revenue for a number of years. For several years, New Mexico Junior College has handled nuclear training for Lockheed Martin. I have lived in Lee County for more than 50 years and seen the booms and busts of the oil economy. We have been aware for many years of the need to diversify our economy so that we are not totally dependent on the ups and downs of one industry. Although we are still heavily dependent on oil and gas, we have had some success with Urenco being our poster child. The Holtec project is a project that we are ideally equipped to take on. It is a project that, despite what others may say, will produce virtually no air pollution and use virtually no water. The jobs it creates are important to the economy of southeastern New Mexico, and the tax revenue created will also be important to local governments in our area and to the state of New Mexico. I live here, my children live here, my grandchildren live here. I have a great-grandchild that lives here. I would never support this project if I wasn't 100% convinced of the safety of this project. There's one other very important fact I'd like for you to take into consideration. If Congress makes the decision to move forward and create an interim storage site, there are only 2 applicants. The Holtec application, which I am here to support, is located approximately 35 miles from Hobbs and 35 miles from Carlsbad. The Holtec technology is an underground storage plant that is already being used and found successful at some of the nation's on-site storage areas located at nuclear power plants. The other application being considered is by WCS. It is for a site located in Andrews County, Texas, approximately 3 miles east of Eunice. In fact, about 75% of Lee County's population lives within 20 miles of this site. Their technology calls for an above-ground storage system that I don't feel would be nearly as safe as a Holtec underground system. Since the nearest town in Texas is more than 30 miles away, if there was ever a problem, the first responders would have to come from Eunice, from Hobbs, and from Lee County. Yet virtually all of the employment benefits and 100% of the tax benefits would go to Texas. If the Holtec application were to be rejected because of opposition from state or local governments in our area, it is very likely that we would end up with a storage site within 20 miles of over 50,000 Lee County residents with no economic benefit coming to Lee County or the state of New Mexico. I want to thank you once again for coming to Lee County. I want to encourage you to support a project that the Eddy Lee Energy Alliance has been working on for a number of years.
Thank you. Mayor Cobb.
Did you want to speak? Public comment? Okay.
One more thing I want to say. I'm going to have to leave because I have a junior college board meeting at 1:30. I don't want you to think I'm saying my piece and walking out on you.
Chairman Simon, members of the committee, again, welcome to the community. It's been a pleasure hosting you today. We look forward to having you come back. My name is Sam Cobb. I'm the second-term mayor of the City of Hobbs. I'm here today representing the City of Hobbs and the Eddy Lee Energy Alliance in support of the science-based evaluation of the interim storage application by Holtec International. The political leadership and citizens in Hobbs and Lee County are some of the most informed individuals in this country to the facts and the myths surrounding the entire nuclear cycle. I would remind this committee that there are 2 licensed applications currently in front of the NRC for interim storage of spent fuel. One is the Holtec application that is located 35 miles between Hobbs and Carlsbad that I believe is the safest system yet devised. Additionally, its operation will create jobs for our citizens in Lee and Eddy County and a sustainable revenue stream for many years for our local governments as well as the state of New Mexico. The other is a WCS application that is located in Texas, approximately 15 air miles southeast of Hobbs. I believe its design is not as robust as the Holtec design, and I know that if WCS receives a license there will be little or no economic benefit to our local governments or to the state of New Mexico. It is naive of us to think that oil and gas can always be 1/3 of the source of revenue for the state of New Mexico and a primary driver for revenue for our local governments. We must look for projects that will diversify our revenue and provide sustainability. It is also naive of us to think that there will not eventually be a place chosen for interim storage. The American public wants it. They want spent fuel moved away from our population centers, unstable geographic regions, lakes, and streams. The scientific community and the nuclear industry and in our government are well aware that the Southwest is the most viable location. I encourage the committee to include these facts in your thought process as you evaluate your support for the Holtec application and would remind members of this committee that have White Sands, Sandia Labs, and Los Alamos National Laboratory in your respective districts or close to your districts that the citizens of Southeast New Mexico have always been in support of these important installations in our state. Again, thank you for coming to Hobbs and look forward to working with you in a continuing dialogue on this important project.
Sally Tomar. Oh, my bad. I'm just going to look at the ones who wanted to speak. Nicholas Maxwell.
Hello, my name's Nick Maxwell. I'm coming to Hobbs, and I'd like to just address more so the Eddy Lee Energy Alliance organization. I really can't speak for Holtec, but I can speak that Eddy Lee Energy Alliance has been notified of violations for their minutes, their meeting minutes where their board meets and records what they do, and they ignore those notices. There are so many open meetings violations and procedural errors. I'm going to let you know their bylaws specifically say that their contracts are to be executed by either the president or the vice or the chairperson or the vice chairperson, and their second signature has to be a treasurer or secretary on these contracts. None of these contracts have a treasurer or secretary signature. We got a bunch of filed contracts down at the county courthouse that don't appear to even follow the bylaws of Eddy Lee Energy Alliance. What I've brought to the board today, and I'll end with, is I'd like the public that is here to realize Eddy Lee Energy Alliance has put out an RFP. The deadline is July 31st for a lobbyist. They would like to spend, in my opinion, a considerable amount of money to lobby this idea to the state legislature. Secondly, I would also like to present to the chairperson invoices from Union Insurance, which lists our insurance agent for Eddy Lee Energy Alliance. It's Lavelle Insurance Agency. I don't like it. So I'm going to go ahead, and if I may approach, I'll give you the documents. Thank you for your time.
Okay, moving on to Ed Hughes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I come here as a landowner from northeast New Mexico who has just faced an analogous situation with the proposed Department of Energy borehole high-level nuclear waste disposal site. This is not WIP material we're talking about, the high-level nuclear energy. And what quickly came out of this is that how do you do this? You keep wearing out or something.
Yeah.
Hold here, does that work? Okay.
No.
Let me try this one, how's that? Is that better? Okay, thank you. The impact of this far exceeds private property rights. What we found is that even the proposition that there might be high level of nuclear waste put at our site, and the site was about 2.5 miles from our south fence, that our property values are actually going down. People were having difficulty getting bank loans for their ranch operation because bankers were thinking about they might have to put up more collateral. We found it not economic development, but economic replacement of our base economy, which is ranching, farming, business in Clay County area and the 4 adjoining counties. It replaces our way of life and our culture. After the community rose up in protest, the DOE abandoned the project. A representative of the Eddy Lee Energy Alliance has said that this project would bring all the nation's high-level nuclear waste, and it is an economic development opportunity and is benign. That was the exact opposite of our experience. It was far from benign. Just from the fact that you can't get insurance against nuclear accidents tells me that there's a real issue here. We couldn't get it for our ranch if the stuff came in. I want to read a quote from the San Diego paper. This is New Mexico group makes its pitch to store San Onofre's nuclear waste, which Holtec has some canisters on site. In the search for finding a place to move the 3.55 million pounds of nuclear waste from the San Onofre Nuclear Generation Station, acronym SONGS, one question has always come up. Sure, it would be great to send all that spent fuel as far away from the beach as possible, but who would ever be willing to accept it? On Thursday night, those attending the quarterly meeting of the SONGS Community Engagement Panel heard directly from representatives from private industry looking just to do that. This is a statement, one person's waste is another person's most valuable possession, said John Heaton, who is leading a group called the Eddy Lee Energy Alliance, who wants to build a massive nuclear storage facility in the desert of southeast New Mexico. I'll give you credit for that, Mr. Heaton. If nuclear waste is the most valuable possession and is an economic development opportunity and is benign, then why doesn't California and every other state in the union that has this take advantage of that? Take, for example, Illinois, with its 10 or so nuclear reactors, depending on who puts out the numbers. If Illinois was a nation, it would be the 10th largest nuclear power in the world. But Representative Shimkus from the state of Illinois has sponsored a bill to change the law so that the Holtec Interim facility can be built without a permanent repository being established.
Yeah, shut this up.
Oh, I've got 1 minute?
No, your time's done. Just finish your sentence.
It's already done? Oh, okay. I have a lot more to say, but thank you for the time. I'd like to speak again if there's a possibility.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so would it be helpful if we did a subtle little eye thing, or
That would be helpful.
kind of do a little something? All right, we'll try to kind of raise our hand at 1 minute. Okay. Jean Harbaugh. You might say where you're from, if you'd like.
I'm from Carlsbad, New Mexico. Outside agitators. I don't have much to say. I have lived in Carlsbad for 32 years. I live within 300 yards of a railroad switching yard. So there's constant traffic there, so I have some concern about a plan that would involve shipping radioactive waste by rail. However, my concern regarding the placement of a nuclear dump near Carlsbad and Hobbs are more basic than the transportation and accident issues that might take place. I'm sure most of you saw this paper this morning with pictures of the accident that took place and demonstrates what a railroad train can do to a 16-wheel vehicle this morning. But it seems obvious to me that the purpose of moving toxic waste from its present location is so that there will be space to create more toxic waste. Is that not correct? And if, in fact, the removal of waste to the proposed site in New Mexico is essential for the long-term benefits of the nuclear industry, then this is really why we are doing this, is to perpetuate the creation of more nuclear waste. So when will we come to the realization that an industry that produces a toxic substance which cannot be disposed of should cease producing that substance? It's impossible to justify creating, let alone transporting, a substance that threatens the security, the health, and the well-being of the citizens of this nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Nick King. I'm a citizen of the Kingdom of God and a steward of His great creation. I'm also a resident of Carlsbad and of this great state. And I hate to see this land of enchantment become a sacrifice zone to the nuclear industry and become the nuclear waste dump of America, just for the temporary benefit of some in this temporal nuclear age. I see this as a temporary solution to a permanent problem, and it should be a permanent solution instead of just a temporary thing. That this is a dirty trick we're doing to our descendants to kick this can down the road, so that in 300 years or whenever, this has to be dealt with again. I do not consent to the indefinite interim storage for the next thousands of years. Besides that, Holtec is a private company. And as a private company, shuts down whenever it is not profitable. And then who is left responsible? If the federal government doesn't take responsibility, it is us that are in charge of this debacle.
Melanie Beckham, City of Jowl, City Council.
I don't have a lot. Can I just stand right here?
You can't, if you use the mic, I apologize. I know.
I don't have
Just helps everybody here.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say thank you all. I know that some of you guys are not happy with the City of Jowl, and I apologize for that. I think our biggest concern has been a lack of information. As Mr. Black pointed out, this has been going on for years. I found out about it about 3 months ago. There's been no one in our community that I've spoken with that knew about it. I know that our elected officials have known. No one brought it to our community. And I think that's a problem. Senator Kernan, and with great respect, you talked about the NRC being over the transportation, but obviously, according to the two gentlemen that were up here earlier, there's a definite breakdown. They may be regulating it. This paper says that the NRC oversees it, but the DOT coordinates and regulates carriers and routes. So obviously, though, I mean, these guys are the ones with the boots on the ground, and they see where the problems are. And I think we should have a whole lot of, that should have a whole lot of weight, because they're the guys putting their lives on the line every day. Representative Colbert and Senator Martinez, you're worried about it being a business deal. I understand business. We're landowners, we're business owners. I'm a resident of Jow. And I feel like this is not something that'll be contained on that property. If there were an accident, I understand it's going to be as safe as it can be, and I hope that happens if it goes through. But there's a whole lot more information that I feel like we all need as citizens of the county. I feel like our county let us down in not providing us with this information. You guys, the health and safety of your families are not affected. You have been, but you know, would you invite them to come to your county? We're welcome to entertain that thought. And also, Representative Scott, you talked about there being a 1 in a billion chance. How do we know that if this is the first time anything like this on this scale has been done? We've never moved this many tons of waste from every coast to one spot in the nation. How can you tell me that there's a 1 in a billion chance that anything will happen? Risks are part of life. I understand that, and I agree with it. And I know I'm shaking. I hope that this all goes well. But you know, I think if we all see a shark in the water, you stay in the boat. I mean, you have to be sensible in the risks that you take. We teach our children that every single day. This could work out really well, and it could be a disaster. One last question is emergency preparedness. I know that the county's been practicing, Hobbs has been practicing, but these other communities, our Jow Volunteer Fire Department, if something happens out there, there's a good chance they'll be called in. They don't have this kind of training. And I hope that if it happens, Holtec will commit to providing some financial assistance in training and gear and materials that we'll need just in the event that something happened. But anyway, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, so we are John Eaton.
Good afternoon, committee. First of all, let me just make a comment. I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have some of the rail carriers here to make comments, and DOT nationally to make comments about how they oversee waste. But let me make a few comments, if I could, about transportation, since that's the focus of the meeting. First of all, there are 4 layers of protection, of containment, in both the cask system and the storage system. You just saw the fuel pellet come around, and it is a solid material. It is then contained in a zirconium metal tube, which is welded shut. It is then contained within a canister, which is welded shut, and then it's subsequently contained within the cask that it will either be shipped in, or in this case, in the concrete matrix that it will be stored within. So there are 4 layers of confinement that most assuredly prevent any release of the nuclear material out of those 4 layers of confinement. The Holtec 190 cask has a 15.5-inch wall on that cask. It's made of steel and lead, and there's boron within it to absorb neutrons. And so the outside dose on that, the NRC allows 10 millirem at 2 meters from the outside of the cask. The Holtec cask has 2 milligrams per hour, and you would have to stand in one place for an hour to get the equivalent of a dental x-ray. And people working in the rail system are up and down the train, and they're doing whatever they're doing, and being in one place and getting that dose is very, very remote. In fact, probably would never happen. So this 4 layers of protection is really important. The shipment is by train, and there are typically, it will be done with unit trains. It will have 7 to 10 cars in that unit train. They are inspected by not only the FRA, but they're inspected by DOT prior to their leaving, prior to their departure, to make sure that they meet those standards. There are only the shipments that will come. There will probably be only 1 a month. You talked about the dense shipment of 10,000 shipments. That's ridiculous to think they're all going to show up in 1 month. They'll be shipping about 1 a month, 10 canisters, if you will. The shipments are satellite tracked. The caboose on that unit train will be filled with guards and guns, and it will be highly secured, and it'll be satellite tracked. This is Category 7 waste. It will not be allowed to go over 50 miles an hour, as you heard earlier, on the very best rail in the system. As the rail diminishes in quality, then the speeds drop significantly. So this is all about physics. It's about what happens to that cask if it gets thrown off the train. And I think you all understand the faster it's going, the more force that it will receive on it, and the more probability of damage to the cask. But slowing the cask down means that the probability of any kind of destruction to the cask then is significantly reduced. You heard the number 1 billion to 1. So just to give you...
John, time's up, but you can finish your thought.
Oh, I didn't see the minute. I didn't see the notice. Just real quickly, there have been 1,300 spent nuclear fuel shipments in the United States without incident, without a release. There have been 850 naval shipments, also without incident, without release. There have been some 30,000 shipments worldwide. WIP has had 12,000 shipments, and WIP also has gone 4,000 million miles. That's like going to the moon and back 28 times. And there have been no releases. There have been 12 accidents. I'll never say there won't be an accident, but in fact, I need to finish up here. So at any rate, the point is that this is a different type of waste that's monitored and managed very, very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Hanna. Karen Hanna.
Good afternoon. Thank you, committee members, Chairman Steinborn and others here. I appreciate you looking carefully at these issues. And you've heard some very important testimony today. I think there's a couple things. By the way, I'm with the SEED Coalition, Sustainable Energy and Economic Development Coalition. And I admit, I am from Texas. And some of you are probably saying outside agitator, which I hear used. However, I would like you to know that in Texas, we would be severely impacted, as much or more than New Mexico would, by 10,000 shipments of this waste, which would go through San Antonio, most likely, could come in through Houston, could go through Dallas, Fort Worth. In Fort Worth, there's a train center that is, I think, the largest in the country, with tens of tracks all coming together in one place. And sometimes trains sit there for several days, stalled. So we feel impacted in a very, very big way. And we urge the NRC to hold hearings in Texas so that those of us along the route could have a say. But that did not happen. I'm concerned about some of the things that got said today. And the minimization of risk. I think it's important for you to know that this is not fuel. This is not the pellets of fuel that come into a reactor. Spent fuel comes out of the reactor at least 1 million times more hot in terms of radioactivity than the fuel pellets that go in. So please be aware that when this goes on the rails, it is incredibly hot in terms of radiation. The NRC studies have said that this waste is deadly. The NRC has said if you are 3 feet away from unshielded waste, you will be immediately incapacitated and die within a week. This is deadly stuff. Importantly, there's been a lot of talk about when do you take on risk and when you don't. This waste does not have to move. It does not have to come here. It does not have to go anywhere. In some locations, if it's close to the ocean or a river, they might want to move it as little as possible away from the water. But there is no reason whatsoever that that waste has to come here. It's just because those communities want rid of it. Why do they want rid of it? It's dangerous. Most all reactor communities fought like hell not to have a nuclear reactor in their backyard. There's been over 100 that were operating at one time. Now this community is getting ready to consider having the equivalent of 100 nuclear reactors in their backyard. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's safe to ship it on the rails, and you heard it today from the railroad engineers earlier. Thank you very much.
Margot Hobbs.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here, for having me here, and I appreciate everything I've heard today. My name is Margot Hobbs. I come from Amarillo County, Amarillo, Texas, Randall County. My family were some of the very first founders here that came on covered wagons. Founded Hobbs, came to Hobbs under the Homestead Act. I have many family and friends here. The only reason this was brought to my attention to begin with was for some other research I was doing for my community. A few months ago, it was brought to my attention that there was significant cancer and disease issue in Lee County. A particular concern was the large numbers of brain cancer and especially a large number of glioblastoma. This is on a spreadsheet. It is documented. Right now, there's over 65 cases of glioblastoma in Lee County. Normal rates for this cancer is 3 in 100,000 people, and we have 71,000 people in this county. I was going to talk about WIP, but we obviously know what happened at WIP, that we didn't make it 14 years without decontainment, that we have problems, that Trump has increased the budget for WIP possibly to $403 million in 2019 so that we can fix the issues that have happened. In regards to the Lee County Alliance and Holtec, it's made to look like it's a consortium of the communities and the counties and the people. But make no mistake about it, as we heard from Representative Colbert, it is a business. And it's 8 board members. What is an LLC? 8 board members who have equal investment and ownership, many of them who are dispersed through our city and county government. These individuals stand to profit immensely. This happens. Anyhow, there's a lot more I have to say, but many have pointed to the water and air pollution as a source of the high cancer rates. Holtec and the Eddy Lee Alliance says that we're a stable environment, and that we have strong consent of the community. What constitutes strong consent? Is it fair and just to allow the Alliance to speak for all of southeastern New Mexico? Has there been any effort to include the minorities of our community? With notices and information on all levels, it has been quoted, "One person's waste is another person's most valuable treasure." The thousands of tons of nuclear waste is not my treasure, and it's not to be my inheritance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Smitty, do you want to speak?
I'll skip it until she can get that loaded. I show up somewhere else later on the list too, thanks.
Okay, Ross Gardner. Rose? Did I get that right? Rose, I apologize. Someone with a butchered last name.
Oh, man. You got the first name.
Good afternoon, committee members and Chairman Steinward.
I believe this committee should take heed to the railroad experts and the other experts that have not given their opinion today. Not necessarily the NRC, who is only a regulating agency. Protection of railroad workers is of the utmost importance, as is first responders and others that will be in contact with this high level of nuclear waste. Since there hasn't been much response to your 60 question letters, then you don't have the answers. If you don't have the answers, then I don't have answers. Okay, to impress upon you again, there is a deadline of July 30th, 2018 for any public comment to go into the NRC for this application. After that, there won't be any more public comment allowed. You can go to their meetings and they'll hear you out, but this is an important time for us to speak up, including you, the committee. Some members here want to shove this private business deal through without all the necessary answers. It is apparent there will be no response. When some of the New Mexico legislators requested that the NRC delay the application process, there were 7 legislators that signed on that said they didn't want it to be slowed down, moving on through, and they got their way. Those 7 should really try hard to get these entities to submit their answers. As a lifelong resident of Eunice, I live near Uranco and WCS. I see the grass fires that come so close to those facilities. How long will it take to get fire and emergency responders to the Holtec site, 35 miles away from any of these communities? I see how the train accidents and derailments make the news daily. I see that the railroad experts are telling you there are problems that are not readily solved. Are you listening? I do not consent to a private company, Holtec in this case, nor WCS, to transporting high-level nuclear waste, nor do I support the storage of high-level nuclear waste in my state of New Mexico. I do support Haas at the reactor sites, which are at this moment the interim storage sites. I do support the U.S. government identifying and getting local consent and a permanent repository that is geologically and hydrologically suitable for permanent disposal of high-level waste. During this time, the railroad and other agencies should be working towards getting the answers to all the questions they have and the issues that they have to overcome. I do support the expansion of solar and wind industries in our state. Thank you so much.
Okay, Neil Morgan.
Just 1 second.
Can you hear me? Is this good? Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the committee, Chairman Steinborn. Thank you for the work that you all did for sending the letters to the agencies. My concerns are not just about the site itself, the transport, and I have some other major concerns that could be coming up. So I just wanted to start off by saying I oppose the site, I oppose the transport. I am Diné. So as an Indigenous person, pretty much everybody else are outside agitators, as it were. And so my people, we have a law against uranium mining as well as transport of radioactive materials through our nation. Unfortunately, we do not have jurisdiction over the railroads, but it is, I know for a fact there are several communities, Navajo chapters along the rail that are very concerned. I'm not really sure what legal recourse they have, but whatever decisions that are made by the NRC and however much your committee could help our New Mexico residents that are also Navajo Nation members, we really appreciate that because we've already lived the experience of contamination from radioactivity. As you know, we have a lot of cancers. I've lost a lot of family members. But I really wanted to spend a couple minutes, if I have at least a couple more minutes, to talk about what I'm really concerned about here that it hasn't been mentioned very much. Holtec has just gone into business with another company, something Lavalin, and they formed another LLC to work on decommissioning. So this is big business. It's definitely an economic opportunity, but not for New Mexicans. And so what I'm concerned about is because of all these aging reactors across the country, which will have to be shut down soon, and there's going to be a lot of waste that they don't want, so they think that we want it. They're making business. They're going to make a lot of money. They're going to be in business to decommission these reactors quickly, as it were. You know, they're business people. So we're just their dumping ground. In the meantime, they're making money, and they're proposing to do this all over the country at over 100 reactors or wherever they can get their business. On top of that, the DOE had a meeting on July 16th, and they reshuffled their advisory committee on radioactive matters, as well as reshuffled their priorities. And one of the most biggest concerns for me is that in dealing with nuclear waste, high-level radioactive waste, they have coupled it with this push for reprocessing at centralized interim storage facilities, which means this could possibly be an area that might be not just affected by the waste site, but by reprocessing, which will create a lot more waste. We know that Representative Brown tried to change the nuclear energy to be relabeled as renewable energy in New Mexico, and I'm really happy that didn't go forward because that would be one of the ways to push for reprocessing, because some people think you can reuse the waste and the fissile plutonium in the waste to make more electricity. We don't think that's a good idea. We know it's going to be very detrimental, not just to our environment, but to our future generations. And of course, you know, all the accidents and risks of such. So thank you for your time. I appreciate this opportunity to speak.
Ready for submitting or not? I can move on while you're queuing up. Okay, we have Lorenzo Velasquez. Back on the list. Steve here. And then we'll go to Smitty right after this one.
Chairman Steinborn and members of the committee, welcome to Hobbs. My name is Steve Verick, and I'm a Lee County resident. I serve as the president of the Economic Development Corporation of Lee County. The EDC-LC, as we're known, previously worked closely with URECO in their process to locate a uranium enrichment facility here in Lee County. In spite of the significant out-of-state opposition to nuclear facilities, URECO has proven to be an excellent facility and corporate citizen. Because so many of our neighbors work at URECO and WIP, people in this area have become knowledgeable about nuclear materials and know that they can be safely handled with the appropriate technologies. In the time I've lived here, I've met several retired nuclear Navy veterans who moved here to work at one of the two facilities because of their advanced nuclear science education and training. We have many people in this area that are very knowledgeable and educated in nuclear matters. The proposed Holtec facility was selected years ago after much analysis because it is a site well suited to the proposed facility. In addition, it is located 35 miles from Hobbs and roughly the same distance from Carlsbad. Holtec was selected because they're out of other options because their system is the safest and the most proven in the world. Their high-star cast has passed all Nuclear Regulatory Commission testing and modeling with the level of radiation released at 2 meters, 5 times less than the NRC standard. It is the safest and most proven technology in the world. Without the significant economic benefits of the proposed ALEA facility, including high-paying jobs, extremely high tax revenues, particularly property tax revenues to support education and public services,
and buffering from oil and gas cycles. That is the reason why the ALEA Consortium of Public Entities was formed initially, to receive those benefits. In closing, we are confident that the NRC, in its in-depth study, will rigorously evaluate the proposed technology as it relates to suitability for the proposed use. Thank you.
Steve, former constituent from Las Cruces. All right, moving on back to Smitty.
Thank you.
Tom Smitty Smith.
Good afternoon, members, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate being here. My name's Tom Smith, or Smitty. I am here on behalf of Public Citizen. We have 1,400 members that are lucky enough to live in New Mexico. And as we all know, this is a big technological bet we're about ready to make with the desert out in southeast New Mexico. And as this microphone has proven, the best technology we've been able to buy doesn't work often when we expect it to, or nor does it we expect reliably. I'm here to talk with you about what we think are the big risks. Transportation. The biggest risk is what happens if this becomes a permanent dump site and it never goes away. What happens if there's an accident? What if there is a terrorist attack on a shipment of waste going out to the site at one of the major cities in the United States? What happens if cask leaks? Or what if the water at the site leaks in? And there's a lot of secrecy and inconsistencies in the applications. And everywhere we've put one of these things, with one exception, these dumps have leaked. And we have to rely on Congress to come up with the fund. Good luck. If we could go to the next slide, I'd appreciate it. The second slide kind of goes through some of the, keep on going down one, please, if you will. So the government's been searching for a site to put this stuff since the 50s, and they haven't found it because nobody wants it because it's so dangerous. Yucca Mountain's a wet site, and it's unlikely it'll ever be permitted. So what happens if this becomes a permanent site? Will these canisters last 1 million years? No, they're not even talking about that. They're guaranteeing maybe a couple hundred. Who's going to pay to repackage it? And is the federal government going to be good for their word? Who pays to guard it, and who's going to maintain it? Next slide, please, Shannon. This is the big question for you. When you look at where the waste is, it's primarily to the east. It's going to be coming down the rail lines through Texas into southeast New Mexico. And it's going to be coming on canisters or casks like that. They're somewhere in the neighborhood of about 207,000 pounds. You heard today these tracks are rated 143 pounds, or tons rather. The map up there on the right kind of shows where, this is from the Holtec app as I recall, it shows where that rail line is. And the rail line that is likely to come down is going to be through Clovis and down to Roswell, Carlsbad, and then over to Hobbs. They're going to build a special spur. But on the very right-hand corner, it shows the big flaw in this idea. And that is that that rail line goes right over the very edge of the sinkhole. That's what you're betting on, is that that rail line is not going to fall in the sinkhole carrying a load of this stuff. Now, the NRC says we're going to have maybe one accident in 10,000 shipments. And that's, good luck. I'm hoping that's all you have. And it might break open in a may contaminate area. If it does, it's 42 miles that is contaminated in an urban area that's $9.5 billion to clean it up. Next slide. All right. As Donald said earlier, train accidents aren't rare. And the last slide, and you'll have an opportunity to look at this later, basically goes to, there are a lot of questions you ought to ask the NRC if you meet with them about their responsibility and who's going to take care of it. And Mr. Chairman, I would like to donate a red file that Shannon can flash to people when they're at their 1 minute.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Thanks. Moving on to Alfinda Square.
Al.
Al Square, I'm sorry. Al and Linda. Sorry.
Good try. My wife couldn't make it, though. Thanks. Can you hear me? Okay. I'd like to thank the committee for letting us speak today. And I've met a few of the different folks on the committee. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity. Representative Brown, we've met before, and Mr. Martinez as well. My wife and I are both graduate veterinarians. We graduated quite a few years ago. And we operate a dairy in Hagerman. It's called Southwind Dairy. And I'd just like to speak very briefly, since we only have 3 minutes, about the dairy industry in the state. Most of you people understand at least some parts of it. Just like this proposed project, the dairy industry mostly came here as an economic development issue, certainly into the southeastern part of the state. Currently, the New Mexico dairy industry has a total economic impact exceeding $5 billion a year. When I first moved here, talking to the local bankers, they were just thrilled that we were coming in. Every dollar in the local economy turns over at least 5 to 7 times. The dairy industry currently provides employment for nearly 6,000 people directly, and over 17,000 jobs are generated indirectly from other people that we hire. Most of the milk is delivered to 2 large cheese plants in the state. And the largest one in the world is in Clovis. A large part of our feeds are transported by either truck or by rail. You're right alongside this stuff when you're starting to bring it in for the Holtec plan that they're looking at. Any of our feeds could be potentially contaminated. These type of things, I hear people saying, well, if you walk past this cask several times, you'll only get about the equivalent of dental x-ray. My training says that that's cumulative. And you are going to, if you walk by that cask enough times, you're going to have some problems. Radiation is not safe. It is not safe, and we're asking to put this stuff in our area, in our state. And we're looking at risking all of our businesses. There's every one of the New Mexico dairy producing operations are family operations. We built them pretty much from the ground up, and we really risk that. And if we run the risk of any kind of contamination of the feed, the water, the cows, the air, we're out of business. Who is going to pay for that? If I can't sell my milk, if I can't sell my meat, who's going to feed my cows? Who's going to pay for it? I think that's something everybody needs to look at, because there is a very substantial liability issue. One thing I would like to close with, if everybody says these things are so safe, why don't we just use those casks and leave it where it came from? And I think that would be a lot safer. Or anybody that wants to vote for this, maybe they should put a cask in their garage for the rest of the next 20 years or so and see how safe that is. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol. Carol Levine? Yeah, you can hold the mic up. You don't have to turn it on.
Okay. Well, good afternoon.
Good. I think it's
on. Okay, is that working? Okay. Thank you. My name is Carol Levine, and I'm a resident of Hobbs. My family and I have been here 40 years. So the New York accent has really been overruled, but it still sounds like that. A lot of what I wanted to say has been covered. It seems to me what keeps coming up is the transportation issue. And we keep hearing that the licensing doesn't have anything to do with the transportation issue. License Holtec and then deal with the transportation issue. That doesn't sound like a reasonable thing to do. If you have to look at the transportation after you license them, are you going to tell Holtec they can't go ahead with the building and everything? Of course not, they're licensed. And then if you find out the transportation issues don't work, you're going to tell them to tear it down? It just doesn't make sense to me. Another thing that doesn't make sense to me is that the government does not have a good record with nuclear anything. And to move this stuff over a railroad system that may not work just doesn't make sense to me. As a New Mexico resident, I look at the state and I realize that we have taken risks. We have taken nuclear risks since World War II and before that. The United States has asked New Mexico to take risks with its population, with the Trinity site. I've worked up at Bandelier in the summers, and Los Alamos, there are canyons that have radioactivity there that say don't go into it. So there's Los Alamos, there's the Trinity site with the downwinders that have gotten cancer, there's the plutonium mining up in the northwest. Down here we've had the WIP site. There's all sorts of things that New Mexico has done for the country. And unless we get everything exactly right, and I don't know how we can avoid risks, I just think that they should leave it where it is. And that's about it. Thank you for hearing us out, and it was nice to have you all here asking questions of the individuals. We didn't have that at the last meeting, but we didn't have the community people asking questions of the people. That would be a third meeting, and I think it would be an improvement. Thank you.
We have a Danny Johnson who said, maybe.
Yeah, I didn't intend to write anything. I agree, I'm against it, and I agree with pretty much what's been said against it as far as that goes.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to Dick Goss.
Thank you all for being here today. My name is Richard Doss. I'm a concerned citizen of the state of New Mexico. I'm a native. I've lived in New Mexico most of my 75 years. I'm a retired banker, past city councilor, and mayor pro tem.
Stick with it.
I'm the past secretary of the Energy Communities Alliance, known as the ECA.
Hey, Jeff, why don't you try to get it kind of squarely underneath your mouth there?
Okay.
There you go.
I'm past secretary of the Energy Community Alliance of ECA. It's known as the ECA. It's a national group out of Washington, D.C. I'm here to speak in favor of Holtec and the Eddy Lee Alliance project. We have had support from the city of Carlsbad, the city of Hobbs, the counties of Eddy and Lee, the Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce, the Carlsbad Department of Development, and I see the Hobbs Department of Development has been here today.
We have national support from the ECA. This project is
This project is critical to the
fuel cycle, to
putting the nuclear fuel at the end of
the fuel cycle, putting it away safely.
Okay.
It's critical to the safety of the country by removing waste from sensitive areas, rivers, ocean cliffs like San Onofre, and seismic activity areas and populated areas. This is in a
safe, remote, dry, and inert area. It also provides economic possibilities for Eddy and Lee County, which is part of the nuclear corridor in New Mexico. We started the nuclear age with Los Alamos. We should be part of the end of it. And this project also provides us the opportunity for research. It will
supply additional income and employment in a state that really needs it. It is safe.
We have energy responses, emergency response system in place, and will continue to train local and state agencies in the event of an emergency.
I'll quit fighting this thing. I'm going to get you back. I'm going to yield my time to Heaton.
You didn't yell that much, you just ran out of it. All right. Let's just keep trying to get the microphone to work. I think you use really good technique, but these things are kind of getting sketchy. But let's keep working it. Okay, moving on to Mike for the Council of the City of Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, allowing us to make public comments. I've lived in jail for almost 50 years now. We are opposed to the nuclear waste site. We passed a resolution a couple of weeks ago, the City Council unanimously stating that we oppose the nuclear waste site. Unlike the other folks, if it's so safe, let's put it in a canister and leave it where it's at. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Lady Pearson.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, legislators, I appreciate the time here. Given my background, my name's Clay Pearson. I'm a sixth generation rancher here in Lee County. We've ranched the same lands since 1897. We were incorporated under the laws of the state of New Mexico in 1911. We currently have a seventh generation person living on the ranch. This ranch is located 27 miles west of Eunice. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Eunice is south of Hobbs. There's a Highway 176 heads up. The location of the site is approximately 35 miles west of Hobbs. Got to back up here to Lorenzo. Lorenzo stated this site's in the middle of nowhere. It's not to me. It's not to these three gentlemen that are with me. It's not to several other ranchers there's several others that are even closer than we are. We've heard about the dangers of nuclear radiation, which we all are concerned about. The general public is scared of it. Another concern I haven't heard, Ms. Brown, Ms. Pablo Colbert nearly touched on it earlier, is economics. We're highly concerned with the devaluation of our lands immediately upon this passing. Like I say, we've been here 120 years and don't plan to leave. I'm also concerned about what this is going to do to the economic businesses in Lee County and Eddy County. How many people are scared enough that they're going to pack up and get out of here? How many citizens are going to be scared that they're going to pack up and get out of here? What about our tourism? Are people going to avoid Lee County and Eddy County because they don't want to drive by this site? That's about all I've got. I totally agree with all the opposition that's been stated today, and hope that you would consider that each of you are charged as being legislators, each of you are charged with the well-being of New Mexico and its citizens. And I would strongly urge you to oppose this proposal. Thank you.
I'm not as old as they are. But I am, my name's Jimmy Gathia. I have been in Roswell, in Travis County.
Use the microphone, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Is it working? It is working. My family's been in Roswell for 120 years as well. And I'm deeply opposed to this project. Keeps talking about economic development. I'm a pecan farmer. We've been pecan farming since 1965. We also have a lot of oil and gas interest. And I own interest in 4 sites that are less than 10 miles from this proposed Holtec site. So I'm very concerned about my businesses. But you keep talking about economic development. I used to be in the waste industry, and I know that waste is not a very good economic development vehicle. Why? Because there's no product, there's no value added. Once it's here, then there's nothing, there's no product, there's no ongoing life. It's just short-term gain for whoever owns the property and for this company, and then long-term liability. And we're talking, hundreds of years. And it's not our waste. It's the East Coast had, 50 years. It's been 70 years now that they have had these nuclear facilities in their communities. They've benefited from the electricity. They've benefited from the jobs. We didn't. And now we're supposed to just take all the waste and house it. I don't know why we're spending so much money moving it to an interim storage. If they've had 70 years to resolve this problem and they haven't come up with anything, why don't we save the money and just move it once to a permanent repository? It doesn't make sense to do this interim storage. Only a few will benefit, and the rest of us, I agree, I'm worried about my property values. I've got property all over the southeast New Mexico. I'm concerned about that. Okay, boy, 3 minutes is not very long. But I do appreciate you all being here and asking questions, and I do look to my elected officials. I do look to you to protect me and my businesses and my family's health. I do think it's your responsibility to look into this, and I appreciate you asking questions, and thank you for the time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Julie Waters.
Well, thank you guys for coming to southeastern New Mexico. I think it's, definitely shows a lot towards our state to make sure that they go to the areas that are affected and are working on projects like this, regardless of where it is. So again, I want to thank you for coming down here. I think it's important. Little bit about me. My wife and I were raised in Carlsbad. I've lived in like 6 different places in New Mexico. Spent my entire life here. Met a lot of great people across the state. I will tell you that southeastern New Mexico is the place that I decided to raise my children. I brought them back here after WIP. I will tell you that I went to high school in Carlsbad, and I remember a lot. I mean, it's almost deja vu. The things I'm hearing now from a lot of the people that are worried, and some are fears, but some are just outright, oh my gosh, where'd that come from? Because we went over this years and years and years ago. The WIP has been open now for some time. There are no 5-headed cattle roaming around. I hunt out there all the time. Haven't even shot a 5-headed quail out there. The property values, you want to go to Carlsbad and ask what the property values are. They've maintained. They never dropped a notch when WIP opened up. Economic development is important for us in this area that depend on a commodities-based market like potash or like oil. Definitely the state depends on us continuing to contribute our portion or maybe even above our portion for the state's budget. Their severance tax bonds, things of that nature. It is good to have something to fall back on for this area so that we continue to contribute when the markets go down, and they do go down. Sometimes they go down at the same time, which is kind of scary. WIP has helped us get through that time period. The recession that everybody else experienced in the 2008 to 2009 time period did not affect Carlsbad near as bad because of the fact that we have WIP, the diversification of the industry. My son is able to come back from New Mexico State and Cruces and have a job to work at that he can support a family on. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the work that my predecessors did to pull that in, and I want you to consider that and consider the concerns that are being raised here are important concerns. Just because I've heard them before and others have heard them before, doesn't mean that they're not important. But please consider the science, consider the true facts. There are a lot of things that have been said about WIP. I guarantee you the people in Santa Fe should be very happy that WIP existed, because if there was no WIP and the activists would have gotten their way back in the 90s, guess what? That waste would have still been up there in Los Alamos, on the mesa, upwind from you folks in Santa Fe. And had those containers gone off there, we'd be dealing with a lot better situation rather than it being contained underground in the area that we have it. So it did work. And definitely that's something that I'm very proud of. I'm very proud we're part of the solution here in southeastern New Mexico. And I want you to consider that again, that as we move forward, consider the concerns, look at the concerns, look at the facts. I think that's very important. I'm an environmental biologist by training. I think that's very important. But use the science. Don't use the fear to make your decisions, because I feel like we can move forward. And New Mexico is good at that. We have great national laboratories here and great people, and definitely one of the best workforces in the nuclear industry down here in southeastern New Mexico. So once again, thank you guys for coming, and look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. Daniel Johnson.
Can you hear me? All right. My name is Daniel Johnson. I am a lifelong resident of Lee County. I do not approve of us storing the nation's high-level nuclear waste in our backyard. I know that there's a lot of other citizens, which you've all heard today. In fact, I've been kind of keeping a track of it, and so far I think we're at like 7-4 and close to 14 or 15 against. There's a lot of citizens that feel the same way I do, I guess is what I'm getting at. The main question that I always have about this is why not store the waste where it's generated? Instead of taking the risk of transporting it across the country on rail cars to a facility in our desert. The answer I usually hear is it would be safer to store it in an area away from heavily populated areas. I get that logic, I really do. But if there was an accident or disaster to put under 100,000 people in a 75-mile radius in danger, then it would be better to do that than 3 to 4 times as many people in a large metroplex. I guess it all looks good on paper until you and your family are the ones that are going to be affected by it. That's the problem that I have with it. It seems to me that the politicians and businessmen that are making all of this happen believe that we are expendable and can be bought by the promise of economic stability. The one thing I believe should happen before any permits are issued is to allow the citizens of this area surrounding the site that could be affected by a disaster or accident to actually have a vote on whether or not they want to expose the future generations of this area to the long-term risks that the site carries. Since we, the citizens, are the ones that are going to have to deal with all of this, we should have a say in it. There should be some type of vote, whether it be through the counties, through the cities, whatever. But right now, we haven't had hardly any say in it except for 2 meetings so far. And they've been trying to get this going since, 2007 or 8? And it's 2018 now, and we've had 2 meetings on it. It's been going on for close to 10 years, and there's been hardly any public input from anybody. So, since, like I said, we're the ones that should be able to decide on it, since we're the ones that have to accept the risk. It's supposed to be a temporary interim facility until a permanent site can be secured. And as far as I know, the Holtec is going to apply for up to 120 years worth of permits. That's pretty dang permanent for everybody in this room. Does anybody here plan on living that long? I don't think that's going to happen. So that's going to be permanent for everybody sitting in this room. Even the first 40-year permit that they're trying to pull is going to be permanent for over half of the people sitting in this room. And that's the problem that I have with it. They say, oh, it's just going to be temporary. No, it's pretty stinking permanent. it's what it is. Let's see. In closing, I hope that you guys, the NRC, and our local representatives listen to what the citizens here want. By a vote. Don't just, all of this seems to be just kind of, the citizens don't matter. Our opinions don't matter. We're going to do this anyways, regardless of what anybody thinks. And that's the way I'm looking at it. It's the way I foresee it, because we haven't had any chance to have any say in it until, how many days do we have before the NRC closes? Like 12 more days before their comment period closes? Yep. Okay, and I don't know. I think it's ridiculous that all this stuff is going down without any type of say or vote or anything else by the people of Lee and Eddy County. And I think that you guys, being people that the people of Lee County and everywhere else in the state of New Mexico have voted in, y'all wouldn't be sitting up here at this desk if it wasn't for the constituents that are here. I think that y'all need to take that into consideration and do more on y'all's part to actually ask the people what they want, because it hasn't happened at all. And that's pretty much it. And I appreciate y'all having this public comment, and thanks again.
Thank you. As a former school teacher, it's hard for me to sit and talk. I spent 12 years as a public educator. I was a biology teacher at Carlsbad. In 1988, I was privileged to receive the award for Teacher of the Year for the state of New Mexico. So that's one of the great accomplishments I've made in my life. The other is I spent 15 years at the waste isolation pilot plant, range scientist, a conservation biologist, and I got 13 professional certifications in the arena of radiological environmental sampling. My family homesteaded the Brennan Stool Ranch east of Jal, New Mexico, so we're one of the legacy families of this area. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some realities. First is, there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion about things that are high in the public arena right now, most notably the lesser prairie chicken and the sand dune lizard. You've all heard of that, and it's been discussed ad nauseum. But the bottom line is that area out there, can you, about, yeah. That area out there is, people have expressed concerns regarding those two species. They're species of concern. They are candidate species for listing. The prairie chicken did get listed, but some of the conservation programs we have in New Mexico got that listing decision abated. Same thing with the lizard. And the area out there with the rail spur for transportation that they intend to do, we've been all over that. We've even conducted tours out there. But we've driven that, and we've gone all over that section 13. That is not habitat where either of those species would ever reside or live, period. The two realities I'd like to mention in my last minute is that we do have spent nuclear fuel in areas that are highly populated, high seismic activity. And the other reality is if Congress were to mandate that this were to occur, logically the evidence indicates that this area of southeast New Mexico, with our radiological IQ and with the monitoring systems that we can put in place to ensure that this place does not threaten the safety of the public or the environment or the wildlife or the ranchers or the cattle, then this would be the most logical place to site this location. So, thank you.
Okay, let's see, Al? Is it Al Square? I already spoke. Okay, Trey Hicks.
He's not here, he's en route. If you could put him last, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Want us to bump him down?
Yeah, bump him down, please.
Okay, you can.
Thank you.
Moving on to Russell Hardy.
Good afternoon, Russell Hardy. I was raised in Hobbs, America, and I've lived in Carlsbad now for 18 and a half years. I think I'm local. I work for New Mexico State University. We run the Carlsbad Environmental Monitoring and Research Center. We do an independent environmental monitoring program associated with the waste isolation pilot plant. So we're basically the eyes and ears for the citizens of southeast New Mexico. I want to talk a little bit about the risks associated with the Holtec project, and then also talk about some research opportunities that may exist if it goes forward. There's 4 ways that radioactive particles give off their energy: alpha, beta, gamma, and neutron. The alpha and beta emission is contained by the canister that holds the fuel. So unless something happens to the canister, there's no way that stuff can get out. The design of the facility being 30 feet in the ground and surrounded by concrete helps to mitigate the neutron and the gamma emission. So other than a little bit of a gamma emission coming out from the cask or from the module, containment module, the only byproduct that it will be generated by this facility is heat. As part of their licensing application, they will have to monitor for alpha, beta, gamma sources. And I'm hoping that they will also fund an independent monitoring program such as ours, so that there'll be two sets of eyes looking at that data. I want to go back to the heat aspect. There's a lot of research opportunities with this project if it goes forward. Number one, with the engineering schools in the area, Texas Tech and New Mexico State, there'd be a lot of projects that would stem from this, looking at canister degradation, canister corrosion, canister cracking, metallurgical components. But also the heat is a very important thing. This is something that if we don't do anything with it, it's just going to evaporate. It's just going to go into the air. But think about if we could get a pilot project to capture the heat from from this project and use it to boil water. We could start taking produced water from the oil and gas industry, boil it through a desalinization process, and create clean water that can either be pumped back into the ground for oil and gas, used on site for site operations, sold to the local agricultural folks, or put back into the aquifer. These are benefits that we can achieve and take advantage of through this project. Again, I understand the risks that folks are concerned about, but through proper monitoring and through proper maintenance of the cask, it won't happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Lorraine Villegas.
Microphone check. Okay, hello, welcome to Hobbs. I'm from here. I have a lot of love for this little town. My family's been here a really long time. We've owned restaurants throughout the area, and I now work in the oil and gas industry. And I keep hearing about how isolated that this facility is going to be, roughly 30-35 miles between Hobbs and Carlsbad. I know we're number 3 in oil and gas right now, so how far is the proposed facility going to be from the highway? There's a lot of traffic that goes up and down, and I mean, I'm expecting the oil and gas industry to grow, so I don't really think that's isolated. I drive up and down there 3 to 4 times a day. There's also a sand facility that the railroad cars are going to be by. So have those areas been briefed? Do they know what's coming through there? Trucks, the CMVs that go and load from those facilities, have they been briefed? I understand that we're barely to the point where we feel like public outreach should be promoted to the public more, but this project was created in 2006, and we want to get this rolling in, 2020, 2 years. So we're barely to the point where we want to start telling people we've got a lot of work to do. Also, if the railways aren't where they should be, and we've got to fix the railways, we've got to get first responders briefed, we've got to provide public outreach and get the rest of our government to come and engage in this conversation, and we have 2 years to do that. Got a lot of work to do. Also, I'd like to continue on what Leona was talking about reprocessing. I know that there's an email that should be public record between 2 elected officials a couple years ago that mentioned how they are eyeing this, that they think this area would be great for small modular reactors. So it's kind of clear to me to see that we want to, what the vision is for this area, and incrementally the powers that be are going to get there. We're already well in the way, and this is part of that. So I don't consent. Thank you for hearing me out. God bless and safe travels.
Trey Hicks. Or is it Tress Hicks? Trace. In between. There we go. All right. Floor is yours.
I just want to thank you for being here to listen to the thoughts and concerns of our community regarding this proposed development. And I want to tell you that I am an engineer, and I live in Hobbs and support this community. We have about 50 employees and families that we support with our business here. And I want to state up on the front end, we're in favor of this project. We reviewed the engineering data, the proposed designs, the safety record of the company, and we have a lot of confidence that the safety procedures that the NRC follows and the engineering designs for the project will, to the best available possibility, ensure the safety of the residents and the community at large in this area. I want to make it clear that while I believe that all those things will happen, you should do everything possible to make it a safe installation. And being out in the middle of the area that is not highly populated, yes, there's a lot of activity in all the rural area around here, but it's not a highly populated region, and it's certainly way better than 5 miles from a city. So I want to just offer my support, tell you we're in favor of the project, and that I have confidence in the fact that it will be successful in this region. I think our country needs it. It's going to alleviate a lot of unsafe storage of waste in other parts of the country, and I think the United States needs somebody like us to step up and take care of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so is there anybody who has not spoken that would like to speak right now? Okay, sir. Going up to the hot seat.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Russ Doss. I'm a professional engineer with Souter Miller & Associates. I serve on the board of directors for the EDCLC, the Economic Development Corporation of Lee County. We're a county-wide partnership of businesses, local governments, and educational institutions. Our mission is to expand and diversify Lee County's economy. The EDCLC and our members have long embraced advanced technologies and projects involved in the nuclear industry as part of our efforts to grow the New Mexico energy pledge and diversify Lee County's energy sector. We work side by side with several entities, Urenco, for example, to locate nuclear sector facilities here in Lee County. These companies have undergone rigorous review, similar to the process we're going through right now, and they've proven to be excellent corporate citizens. Holtec has been spoken about today. They're well respected in the industry. Their storage technology is so well respected that they provide on-site dry storage to 60% of the nuclear units in the United States and possess strong expertise in used nuclear fuel storage. The safety and security of their systems is unmatched in this field. I appreciate the factual evidence presented today. That was really good, last couple of speakers. In addition, the critical advantage of the project is the site, as we talked about. It's roughly 35 miles away, halfway between Carlsbad and Hobbs, and it's also 35 miles away from Lovington on Eunice, and even farther away from Gel. It's been mentioned that a 42 square mile area might be contaminated in case of a spill of some type. When you look at a circle with 42 square miles, that's 3.7 miles around. And we're talking about a 35-mile buffer zone. So it's a significant difference. If the other project, Waste Control Specialist in Texas, that's only 5 miles away from Eunice, as we spoke about. Our focus as EDCLC primarily concerns economic benefits, but we agree no amount of economic development is beneficial if it can't be performed safely. But we have reviewed the proposed safety consideration, and we feel confident that this will be a safe project that will provide a significant positive impact to this region and the United States. With regard to economic development, this will provide almost 100 construction jobs for a period of 10 years, plus 100 long-term, high-quality operations jobs. But perhaps the greatest economic benefit to New Mexico, Hobbs and Lee County, will be the large property tax revenues realized. It will be a $2.4 billion facility. As noted, the WCS project is in Texas. If that happens, there will be no taxes going to New Mexico, no revenues. In closing, we appreciate your recognition of the tremendous economic and tax revenue benefits to New Mexico, the Lee and Eddy County schools, and governments associated with the Holtec's facility. We believe this will be a safe project, and it will provide lasting environmental and economic benefits to New Mexico, Lee County, and the United States. And we'd appreciate your support for this project. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go on the list. Tell us your names.
Alright, so I'm Denise Brown, and Denise Brown. So I'd like to thank the committee for coming, listening to the public's concerns and questions. I would just like to remind the committee that the Nuclear Issues Study Group on May 3rd in Carlsbad, we handed over to the NRC 1,303 letters opposing and this proposal for Holtec, and the Nuclear Issues Study Group has also done a lot of outreach in your counties and communities throughout New Mexico, and we have about 3,500 letters in addition to this 1,300 opposing and concerned about this issue. So I would like you guys to go to your communities and speak to those that you represent of your counties and actually hear what they have to say, because as far as I'm concerned, many of the citizens that you represent in this state are highly concerned about this issue. So thank you so much.
Anybody else? Okay, so we had a few people who wanted just another minute or two to finish their thoughts, and Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but it's already been covered what I wanted to say, so
Okay.
continue on. Thank you for the opportunity to raise.
Anybody else who needs one more minute? Okay, how about that?
Mr. Chairman, there's been a lot of
I had to modify it.
There's been a lot of discussion about WIP. Let me make this point.
Microphone.
There had never been a HEPA filter system put in if we had not expected that at some point there would be an accident within the mine. And so the HEPA filter system was put in. We had always expected that it would be a roof fall. Any mine typically has rocks falling from the ceiling or the back of the mine. And we had always expected that that would be the accident that occurred. We never expected this other would occur. But the point is that we had the HEPA filter system in place to avoid any release to the atmosphere. And that's exactly what happened. So this idea that an accident would never happen is untrue. We had always anticipated it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Levine?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that as far as I could tell, there was only one article in the newspaper about this meeting, and that was this morning. And that's really irresponsible of the newspaper and the media people. But I did want you to know that, so that I think there would have been more people here had they had time to read the paper before they went to work or something and plan for it. But I was kind of disappointed about that. I had heard about the meeting and I was looking for an article, but it was a good article, I guess, today, but it was a little late.
Let me speak to that point, and I don't want to blame the newspaper for that. Maybe that was something my fault for not contacting them earlier. We do interim committees all over the place, and I never think I guess I never thought to call and say, we're scheduled all over the state all the time for interim committees, but that was my fault.
Oh,
not
okay.
the newspaper. So
Not the
let's-
newspaper. All right,
let's
well,
clarify that.
it would be helpful to get more, but that's probably why there were so few people here.
One second. Karen, I saw your hand go up. We're in the 1 minute bonus round. You get a special go start if you don't use the 1 minute.
Hello?
Hello? Okay. I would love it if you guys would ask more questions in the future when you can about if there's any impacts of potash on the potential waste, and to take into account that the area is not necessarily geologically stable. There was an earthquake just a couple days ago, and the SMU reports are coming out that there's a lot of shifting in the region. Also, to clarify, the environmental report for Holtec analyzes for 100,000 metric tons, and the application allows for 173,000, and I don't even know where that would come from, because there's an expected 140,000 to be produced by U.S. reactors by the time they retire. Also, the number of trains in the car seems to change every meeting that I'm at. One time it was 1, one time it was 3 to 5, and I was at 9 or 7 today. I think we need some real answers to changing questions. Thank you.
Thank you. just so you know, we really do have to wrap up the meeting in about 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I have a question and a comment. So my comment is in regards to a letter that was sent by the legislature. 21 representatives signed a letter sponsored by Representative Garcia Richard, and then there was 9 senators who signed the letter sponsored by Senator McSorley, and that was requesting more time from the NRC. And I'm not sure, but I feel like it might be appropriate for the committee or the legislature to perhaps consider filing a contention on this issue with the NRC to get the time needed for what was asked in that letter, to ask for more time. We know that the contentions deadline is September 14th, so I would highly encourage the legislature to utilize this timeline. My question is, I'm wondering if the meeting that you all have with the NRC today will, if the minutes will be available publicly, and if so, when, or what website would that be available on? Thank you.
Let me address that. The NRC invited our committee to meet with them, which we're going to do after this meeting. It is completely their meeting. And I think they call it a government-to-government meeting, but I will be absolutely happy to report out what we talk about, because it's, as I've also said, it's not private information, it's not pre-decisional information, it's just to kind of explain the process, which I would love it if it was public. It's their process, and I thought, well, okay, I'd rather us have the benefit of that information, but I don't know that there will be minutes or not. Certainly ask them, they may be here today, I don't know who they are. Good, moving on, and Al, I know you're on the list, and then I'm taking your hands as they go up, sir.
Okay. I want to make it very, very clear.
I'm sorry. Al, okay.
I want to make it very, very clear. I'm not a scientist. I did tell you that there is 65 cases of glioblastoma documented in Lee County right now on a spreadsheet. 197 other types of cancer. Our community is sick. Our land, our air, we can't take any more. I'm completely against this, and so is everyone that I've talked to in Lee County.
On that point, Mr. Chairman, could you tell me what your source is? Because I've been researching that during the meeting.
Sure.
And that is not the information I'm getting. So could you give me your source?
Sure. We have a spreadsheet
from where?
Of the Lee County Cancer Cluster. It's on the Facebook page.
And who's that?
We have 2 administrators to that. I'd be glad to tell you we have notified the New Mexico Department of Health that their numbers are off, and at this time do not have any response on that.
Well, the state cancer profiles that are done through UNM indicate that that is not correct, but be happy to, if you could share your source.
Sure.
I'd like to look at it.
Thank you. Al.
Yeah, I know we don't have much time because the lights start going out, but just quickly, a few days ago, my wife and I were clearing our labor force off the dairy when we had a lightning storm coming in. And we don't want our people out in the middle of a lightning storm. We just came up with this thought process. Since we're building a proposed project that's all metal in the ground, and these are active canisters, what happens if that bugger gets hit by lightning? I've never heard anybody say anything about that.
Question. Okay. Curtis, you want to...
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say...
Introduce yourself, if you don't mind.
My name is George Scott. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I did research.
Work for Alltech, right?
I don't work for them, they're my client.
Okay, just good.
But I did research on cancer clusters because I heard this before. I spoke with researchers at the University of New Mexico Cancer Center, and they have not heard about a cancer cluster in Lee County.
Anybody else want to avail themselves of the 1-minute bonus round?
Yes, I just wanted to point out 2 things. First of all, the WIP issue was brought up, and we know that we have a $2 billion failure there. And it's estimated in the future there'll be another couple billion put into cleaning that up and setting up to make it safer. The other thing I wanted to point out is on the 42 mile square area, we're not just talking about this site out here. An accident can happen in any urban setting and it could affect millions of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to do just a little wrap up here and some of the current
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify a comment that was made at the beginning. I think it was Mr. Maxwell that stated that the county purchased insurance from the LaBelle Agency, and I just want to clarify, he's not here today, one of our state senators. He has not owned that agency for many years. So I just want to make sure that that is connected, that he is not an owner of the agency, and the fact that LaBelle carries that has no relation to Senator LaBelle.
Thank you. All right. So y'all, first of all, there's one of our staff people I neglected to introduce earlier today, and that's Sarah Wiedmeyer over here. We'll give her a round of applause. As you can tell, or maybe you can't tell, our staff really do an incredible job putting together the hearing.
Yeah.
Staff person, Connie, give her a round of applause. Yeah, she works tirelessly and has to put up with me and build these agendas and reach out and find good people to come and make us smarter on these issues. And finally, I just want to remind everybody, this project is still under a public comment period until the 30th of July. So for those that weren't here today, there's been some reporting. I know there's been some webcasting. People can certainly still get information, and they should. That's what we're trying to do as a committee, is educate people, and people can still get educated even though we're here, no matter what side of the issue they're on. And with that, just want to thank everybody for giving up their day and coming. And we're just honored to do this work representing you and working on these issues. So everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.